Alright, guess who's back? Of course I'm back. I figured I'd be back sooner or later. But, yes, I wanted to say hello to those spiritual warriors out there that you're fighting fights and battles that you shouldn't even be fighting in the first place. That spiritual battle with people that are just, they're trying to tear you down and, be pretty much awful to you, that are pretty much what I call the dark triad brats. But, today I wanted to cover something unique. And it has to do with when you're dealing with one of these dark triad brats and the confusion that happens that I bet a lot of people get confused on. And I'm talking about the part where you love them, but you know that they're bad for you. You still want to help them even while they treat you like trash. Why is that? It makes, if a person's sitting on the sidelines, it makes you look like a crazy person, right? Because even at some point, they know that you're in an abusive situation. So why are you still trying to deal with them? And I'm about to explain that today. And it is so funny because the answer is sitting right there. And it's just like, why don't people get this? But sometimes they do get this. I know some people will totally get it, Let's just get on to what we were trying to say. People, it's about putting things into words. There's already understanding, but it's putting the words where they need to be put. And that's what I'm about to do. And today I'm going to explain why you are probably dealing with a toxic person that is causing you, they're just messing you up psychologically. They might be physically abusive. You know that you shouldn't be around this person. You know that they're hurting you, but you still want to help them and they're hurting you. Why are you doing this? Why? It doesn't make sense. It basically becomes self-destructive, right? I mean, because, if someone's treating you bad while you're trying to help them, let's just get to the facts. Your life's going to start falling apart. It is. Piece by piece, brick by brick. You ain't going to be able to tend to your dating life properly. Since you're not, resting and all that stuff properly, it's going to start affecting your work. Just having this crazy person around. And yet, you still are trying to you're still trying to display loyalty and show them love. And why is that? There is a word for this that has been explained a long time ago, and I'm going to attach it to this right now. And it's actually two words. It is called Stockholm Syndrome. You stopped loving them probably way early on when you realized they were abusive and toxic. But now, to survive all the chaos and the pain and the suffering and the temper tantrums and them just, trying to hurt you out of a sadistic pleasure, you have developed Stockholm Syndrome for them. And, you don't love them. You really don't. You know that they're hurting you at a certain point and stuff, but you also want to actually help them, partially because it's now been attached to your survival mechanism to try to protect yourself from them. So in a way, you're trying to protect yourself from them and give them what they want. But this feeds into a trap where they keep abusing you, and it slowly over time gets worse, and you're trapped in a loop because of the Stockholm Syndrome. And, it's basically you're trying to break your experience of dealing with somebody that is a dark triad brat that is pretty much ran you through a cult system, the cult of them. You became one of the few members, if not the only member, to the church of the cult of the lunatic that you're following behind, and they saw themselves as some point as your Messiah. They're going to lead you to the promised land, or the land of promises for them, built on all of your work, pain, and suffering, and You know, they're going to do it and drag you through the chains with Stockholm Syndrome while you're funnily attached to them. At the same time, you want to protect yourself because you know they're going to come after you and attack you. It's just a matter of time. And you can't tell people this easily because of the fact that they don't see the first layers of attacks. The first layer of attacks are designed specifically for you. Understand this? This is how they locked you in so hard in the Stockholm Syndrome, is that not only do they know your actual weaknesses to try to exploit against you, they've actually created clever triggers over time while they were torturing you and indoctrinating you into their cult. So now they know how to trigger certain things out of you by certain behaviors that they actually act out and trigger your Stockholm Syndrome to make you want to protect yourself. And at the same time, you're trying to show them loyalty, love, respect, all the things they're not showing you, by the way. You know, you're giving them the complete opposite of what they're giving you is the real goal here. You know, you worship them as your cult actual leader, and they will treat you like a cult member. You're not important. They treat you like they have a giant cult of people when there's maybe a cult of 1, 2, maybe 3 tops. But they've actually started a ironic cult where you know, the ones that show up to their ridiculous cult church of this dark triad brat is become primary or prime grade A supply. Let's call it dark triad brat supply. But yeah, you end up becoming supply for them because you know you're showing up. You're in a way worshiping the actual deity that they think they are, the image that they've created in their mind to hold up. And you know, it's an incredibly painful experience. It's even harder to separate from this person because of the fact that, you know, your defense mechanisms are going to go out of whack as you try to separate from this person because you have Stockholm Syndrome. You're going to have attacks of terror. Good afternoon. But yeah, you're gonna have moments where you were hit with anxiety that is so powerful that it is terror. It turns from anxiety to terror. It almost feels like you're gonna die sometimes. What else is gonna happen to you is you're gonna have moments of just dramatic energy drop. You know, as you're trying to separate from a person that has ran you through this cult and stuff. You know, basically consider yourself probably under spiritual attack. Again, that is why we are the spiritual warriors over here. And, you know, as you try to separate from this cult leader, you're going to be under their spiritual attacks. You know, they're going to use the tactics of how to funnily, the way they're going to attack you first. These are actual spiritual ways too, if you sit back and think about it, is through fear, obligation, and guilt. Because, you know, the fear that they might attack you and stuff, you know, is supposed to trigger your defense mechanism, supposed to make you want to defend yourself, right? Obligation is that you kind of made a, you know, even if you didn't swear an oath to this ridiculous cult leader, they're going to presume that since you dedicated and put energy into it, that you've already kind of like swore an unspoken oath of loyalty to them. You've already showed signs of loyalty, so it's already expected, and how dare you take it back? And then when these fail, and you don't show that you're afraid of the repercussions and you don't feel obligated to them, then comes the guilt. And the guilt's the hardest part because the guilt's the part that sticks around the longest while they're going to try to circle the block on sometimes fear and obligation as well. So you will be stuck in what they call the fog for a while. Again, this is like I said, you could consider this a spiritual attack for the things that they do, for the things that I just said, how it works, how they at a certain point they elevated themselves to being your cult leader, and they diminished you in your own life to being a cult member in their cult of worship and serve me. So, yeah, separating will be difficult, but you must go through the process. And I just kind of gave warnings of what's going to happen to you as you try to do this. Your defense mechanisms are going to go out of whack. Anxiety at some point will turn into terror back and forth, but you got to stomach through it. You got, it's going, at some points it's going to be feeling like you're trying to quit a drug. But anyways, I think that I've said enough for now. I want to get out of here. Guests are passing through this park, and they probably think I'm crazy a little bit. Maybe not. But anyways, until I return again, a little more knowledge. They're still not teaching you in college. I think. Yeah, I think.